Hi, this is David from over at SimplyMaya.com, and we've had a forum question on the displacement that was used in our house tutorial and why it's appearing in the wrong place. Now this is fairly common in Maya because of the way it handles displacement, so I'm just going to do a run through of displacement basics and hopefully this will answer the question for you. Now I'm going to start off by just introducing a simple polygon plane here. So if we make that a bit larger, and the reason I'm working on this as opposed to the house roof is this will just be a bit quicker to demonstrate the principle. Now Maya calculates displacement with black being no displacement whatsoever and white being maximum displacement. Now this is quite inconvenient because it means if I wanted to displace this plane downwards I've got a bit of a problem, because if black is 0 and white is 1 then there's no negative. So this is the first problem to deal with. The second problem is when you're working on lower res geometry like this, or indeed like our house roof, this won't have enough subdivisions to displace well, especially for fine detail. So we could go and add a bunch of subdivisions to this, but that would be a bit geometry heavy for the scene. Or we could just go up here and add a mental ray, either subdivision approximation or displacement approximation. So go up to, where are we? Rendering editors, mental ray approximation editor. And we're going to drop a displacement subdivision approximation, a displacement approximation on this. So hit create, and I'm just going to go for the preset of fine view high quality. Now I'm going to change the color of this plane. In fact, let's just slap a new material on this. So we'll use a Mila material, and I'll come in and I'll make this a different color. Okay, let me just hit 6 there. And let me just check my viewport is not on use default material. It is. There we go. So I just get some different colors on this to differentiate it from the background. So let's make that white. Okay, so at the moment if we render this we're going to have no displacement. The displacement goes on the shading group. So let's assign a displacement material, and let's just assign a simple checker. Now this will come in as a black and white image. If I assign it on the color channel here, you'll be able to see it. So let's just bring up the material and the hypershade, and I'm just going to drag that checker here. So under textures you'll see all of my textures here are from the house tutorial itself, and there's that checker. So just middle mouse drag it onto the color. Now we're using the checker for the displacement and for the base color, so the base diffuse reflection. So when I render this now, I would expect these black squares to stay where they are and these white squares to jump in the air. The mental ray displacement approximation will take care of the fact that we don't have quite enough geometry here, so there's nothing to worry about. And let's hit render. So you can see where our checkered pattern was. All of these white areas here have jumped way up in the air and the black has stayed exactly where it was. And in fact, if we get a better example of this, because this is important later on when it comes to keeping your displacement where you left it. So let's get a box here, just so we know that this plane is sitting just above this box. So when we render it now, this should still be sitting just above this box. Where it's black and where it's white, it should be poking up above the box. And let's assign a new material to the box just so we can go ahead and check that out. And let's make this a nice hideous red color, just so we've got that on the render. Now what we're looking for is the black to stay in exactly the same position it is right now. So it's sitting just on top of that box. Okay, so that worked completely as we expected it. So everything stayed where it was and the white jumped up in the air. This means if this was the plane you were using to displace tiles from, when you rendered it, it would remain exactly where it was. The problem with this is we can only displace in one direction. We can go up, but we can't go down. So what we do is we take, whoops, let me just minimize that. We take this, we look at its material attributes, we go to its shading group. Under the displacement material, we go into the color balance, we leave the alpha gain at 1 and change the alpha offset to -0.5. Now what this will do, this will bias the alpha offset. So now black will actually go down and white will go up and grey would be 50% grey. Sorry, 50% grey would be displacement neutral, so no displacement. So now when I render this, you'll see what will happen is these black things will disappear under this sheet, which is what is happening in our forum members render. The plane he's using is actually being moved by the displacement, so the tiles appear to be in the wrong place. So if I kidnap this one, this time what I'm expecting to see is this disappear straight through this plane and everything will be in the wrong place. Okay, so that again went as we expected it to. The black has now disappeared inside this red cube, which means that by setting that alpha offset, we've now given ourselves displacement maps that are capable of being pushed out and in, so we can go up or down, which gives us much more flexibility in the displacement, and it's also how pretty much every other 3D program handles displacement. The problem to this is that if you've got your base plane where your displacement is assigned black, then it's going to disappear downwards. In order for that to remain in place, anything you don't want displaced now has to be at 50% grey. So if I go here under the checker and I change this white colour, or let's change the black colour actually, to a 50% grey, so let's just get it sort of ballpark, there we go. I would expect these to stay where they are now, as they did when they were black. So let's just do a quick rendering of that. And let's just make sure they're on 128. Yeah, that should do it, 50% grey. And let's have a render. Okay, my apologies, it seems I haven't set that to 50% grey, because you can see it going downwards there. And let me just check that colour. And I've set the V to 0.128, which is not 50% grey. I can just go here and set these colours to 128. Sorry. There we go. Bit of a rush there, but right, now we should see what we expect, which is the 50% grey to have no displacement. So black will be a downward displacement, white an upward displacement, and 50% grey, no displacement, which of course means anything you want not to be displaced should be 50% grey. Okay, so here you can once again see my displaced plane sitting just above the box where it should be. It hasn't jumped up in the air, it hasn't jumped down, my white is up here, my 50% grey has stayed static. So this brings us back to our roof tiles. Now we've got this advantage of being able to go darker to push inwards and lighter to push outwards. If I pop open Mari and look at the roof tiles in question, you can see here that I've got lighter edges here and black to push everything down. But the patches with no displacement aren't set to black, they're set to 50% grey. This way the roof won't jump out at you, it won't change location. Now there is a relationship in Maya between that alpha offset, and it's just, if I pop it open, this is half negative of what this is. So if I want much more displacement, I can set this to 2, but by that caveat this needs to go to now -1. Okay, so it's half what this is minus. So if I zoom out a bit, you'll see I get a much bigger displacement when I do this. Okay, so I've now got these white areas pushing up higher, but with that, the grey, 50% grey, stays exactly where we left it. So if these were tiles, they'd now be popping up, and everything in 50% grey would be remaining as is. Really, your only mistake seems to have been, and I recorded the video because I'm not sure how you set your displacement up, whether you followed me with the 50% grey, but your problem is, I think, that these patches that you have are black, which means they're being pushed down, which makes the tiles appear to be pushed up, and that will split the geometry apart as well. So I hope this has helped you out, and if not, ask me another question on the forum and I'll try and get another video out to you. So thanks very much for watching. Cheers.